as important as it is to learn from the mistakes of the past, I think people are even more concerned about trying to prevent or avoid crises in the future. The crisis I'm worried about could be even bigger than the subprime mortgage and financial crisis we're facing today. The crisis I'm worried about is probably best exemplified by this official U.S. Treasury document that comes out every year, but very few Americans, very few members of Congress have ever seen or heard about this document. It's called the Financial Report of the United States Government. It's available for free on the Treasury or GAO website, and yet it seems to be a deep, dark secret in Washington, despite the fact that this is the only official U.S. government document that actually uses real accounting, accrual accounting, to describe our problem, and the only one that contains audited numbers. All the rest of the budget documents we use around here don't meet those standards. Well, why is this document such a deep, dark secret? And it's not classified. It's hidden in the public domain. Perhaps if we did classify it, some spy would try to steal it and then it'd get more publicity. But why is this document so hidden? Because it contains such bad news. Now, this document goes out under the signature of the Secretary of the Treasury. This particular one was signed by former Secretary Snow. The deficit that all the politicians talked about that year was $316 billion. The deficit contained in this document was $760 billion, over twice as large. And the debt is also much worse, because that year the debt was about, the official statutory debt, something like $8 trillion. And here the fiscal gap is $46 trillion. So my question for each of the panelists is this. Secretary Snow, your predecessor lost his job in part because he cared so much about budget deficits. On your watch, did you do anything to publicize this report to make sure that everybody in America knew the real story about the real numbers for America?
Please, microphone.
I said thank you for that, calling attention to that report. One, you asked me what I did. Well, one thing I did was to send it to you, as I recall, to call your attention to it back then in 05 or 06. It's a serious subject. It's a deeply serious subject because the systemic risk associated with the unfunded liabilities, and that's what that report deals with, primarily the unfunded liabilities, the promises we've made to the future that we have not provided for would swamp any problem we've ever seen.
Mr. Secretary, my time is so limited. Only 4 members of Congress get this officially. More members of Congress were briefed on the ultra-secret NSA wiretapping than on this document. You were kind enough to write me a letter after you left office saying how important it is to get this information out. But there's no evidence of any press conference or any public statement that I could find that you made while you were Secretary of the Treasury to get the word out. Mr. Cox, Chairman Cox, you are well aware that every public company in America has to meet certain strict disclosure standards. They have to use real accounting. Well, the federal government has exempted itself for many years from these standards. And wasn't it the first plank in the contract with America to stop these federal government exemptions from the laws that apply to regular Americans? So here we're in this situation where the federal government is the only large entity in America, for-profit or non-profit, government or non-government, that has successfully exempted itself from real accounting standards. Have you done anything in your tenure at the SEC to highlight the real numbers for America?
Indeed, just on the point that you made about the contract with America, specifically that was about making sure Congress didn't exempt itself from the rules that apply to everyone else. But I just so strongly agree with you that for the entire time that I served here in Congress, I mailed that report in the form of an annual report of the United States government to my constituents every year. And I also made it available to every member of Congress so that they could do the same with their constituents. Now, obviously, because the SEC does not have authority to oversee the books of the federal government, this is a Treasury report, so it's not the SEC's province. But as a member of Congress, every single year I sent that out to my constituents instead of the promotional mailings that people get from their senators and representatives. People very much want to see that. I couldn't agree with you more.
Okay. Oh, if you're so informed about these numbers, what is the current fiscal gap for the United States of America?
It's changing rather rapidly.
Give me a ballpark number.
I've just met with Director Nussel and talked to him about what would be the impact.
Ballpark is fine. Give me a number.
Well, the scoring of the $700 billion that the Congress just approved will have such a material impact on this that the ballpark is rather enlarged.
So you don't know. It's the last report said $54 trillion. Chairman Greenspan, you were the longest-serving chairman of the Federal Reserve in our history. You're a well-known financial expert. What did you do in your tenure to help Americans and to help Congress understand the real numbers for America?
Congressman, I took a version of that, which is essentially you're talking about the accrual system, and that then gets reflected in the cash system in the forecasting structure. What I've argued for quite a significant period of time is that we have underfunded for Medicare, which is a very significant part of the numbers that you're concerned about, by half. In other words, in order to actually honor all of the promises that are being made to the next generation, the baby boom generation who are retiring, we would have to either cut benefits by 50%, raise taxes to a point which probably is cannot fundamentally be sustained, and therefore we are looking at as the underlying meaning of these types of reports is we essentially promised to the American people far more than we can deliver, and I'm very fearful that unless and until we solve this problem before everyone retires, the large numbers of people who will not be able to get what they are fundamentally promised still have time to make adjustments in their retirements. But if we wait until the hammer falls on us with the inexorable grind of the numbers, I think we're doing a very great disservice to the American people.
Gentleman's time has expired. Mr. Issa?
Thank you.